Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Paige Webb, and I'm with the Effective Edge. Majority of you received the invitation to participate today because you have participated in our Getting the Edge program, or someone nearby has said, hey, guys, you need to check this out, because what happens when the Effective Edge works with you and your teams is that your individual productivity increases, as does your team productivity and organizational output. We're here today to present a case study for transforming team productivity. For over 15 years, the Effective Edge has been the leader in individual productivity programs. And what we do is we bring in our thought process and methodologies and integrate it to technologies surrounding the workplace. More importantly, or most obvious, we work with Outlook tools or email tools, could be Lotus Notes as well, to give everyone a master control system for managing their day-to-day, whether it's time management, self-management, energy management. It is at the foundation of everything we do. So in the recent years, we've been asked to elevate our thinking and elevate our delivery to bring our teams to more productive output and with more ease and grace. The case study presented today is, I'm so grateful to include and introduce John Kane. He's a Director of Enterprise Quality and Reliability at Dell Computer. And for those of you not familiar with the technology world, enterprise quality and reliability means that as a corporation, when Dell sells a big enterprise solution to a company at the server level or individual user level, there are so many layers of support and product and program quality required. So he's got some big shoes to fill. And Dell Computers is right down the road in Austin, Texas. We've done a lot of work with the individuals there. I'm a native Austinite, so I have a lot of friends and family that work there, so they're close to home. I'm also going to be joined by Angela Ware, and she's a Senior Productivity Specialist here at the Effective Edge. A lot of you have been a part of the experience of Getting the Edge with her as a leader in the classroom. She also brings expert knowledge and facilitation as is required in a team environment to get individuals together, to talk about communication, to talk about personalities. And she's quite the comedian, and when she leaves Getting the Edge with, getting everyone engaged and enthusiastic about the program, she does the same thing in the team environment, and she takes things to a new level. So I'll be introducing both of them. I will also be touching on a couple of the team challenges that have been facing all of us universally. And in the learning environment, which is the industry that the Effective Edge is in, we are exposed to industries near and far all over the globe. And there is a common theme that's arising. And I'll talk about the challenges facing the teams, and I want to hear some input from you as well when I talk about common team challenges. What John's going to be presenting are the challenges he faced, and Angela will present the solutions that were brought in to meet the needs of John's challenges at the individual and team level. And then John's actually going to present and talk to you a little bit about the results that he achieved. And we'll end the session with, which is such a short hour, with some Q&A. And from the questions that have come in before the webinar even got started, I will throw this out there. We've got a lot of questions about SharePoint and the implementation of it as a tool or as an enterprise solution. Every person on this call probably has a different level of experience or access to SharePoint. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all offering, I guess, in SharePoint implementation is. So you might be a designer for your team site, or maybe all you know to be true about SharePoint is that you can upload documents. So within Angela's presentation, she's going to talk about the facets of SharePoint that are integrated into our team productivity program. So just like we integrate the use of Outlook for effective methodology in the Getting the Edge class, we integrate SharePoint or Excel or other project management tools as it relates to team productivity. So we've got a lot to cover and a brief hour. Thank you all for being here. So this Adobe Connect software might be something new to you, and I deliver online classes for Getting the Edge with the software routinely, so I know the ins and the outs. But if you want to ever expand the slides to be a full screen, you can use the full screen button at the top of the slide. You can also choose the raise hand feature on the top toolbar. And what occurs is a little pop-up will show up on our screen, and those questions can be moderated by Carissa Lucas, who's on our marketing team. And you're, at any point in time, welcome to type in the Q&A chat window to the left-hand side of the screen any questions that have come up. At the end of the hour-long session, I'm also going to announce my contact information. If your question is not getting answered and you need some one-on-one help with something or need to be directed to the right resource, you can reach out to me, Paige Webb, and I'll help with those questions towards the end. So thank you all. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that we're facing today as individuals, part of large organizations. Before I put up my pictures here in my PowerPoint, I'm going to ask you by way of a poll, and I want to let you know that this is completely anonymous. I can't see who's responding to what. But I want you to tell me, what are your biggest team productivity challenges? And you can respond with as many of these as you need to. And as this is populated, in just a moment, I'll be able to broadcast the results and talk a little bit about them. So for those of you just dialing in, hopefully you can access the Adobe Connect room, and I'm asking everyone to participate in a poll. What are your biggest team productivity challenges? All right, so it looks like I'm getting some things all over the board here. I'll go ahead and broadcast the results. As per typical, the front runner is email overwhelm. Email overwhelm is affecting us everywhere, whether we're in a small organization or a large one. I've met administrative professionals to C-level executives that get between 100 and 300 emails on a daily basis. So for each of you personally to face that amount of overwhelm and feel the need to constantly be connected to technology is a huge struggle. When we show up in meetings, we're not fully present. We multitask. We think that we need to be responding to email while the meeting's taking place. So that is causing a huge, I'm going to call it a big foggy area of leaving meetings and not knowing what's going on. Meeting overwhelm is also at a front runner. Time zones, we work with global teams. I know that when Angela speaks to the output of the Transforming Team Productivity event, just setting up some protocols and boundaries with how you work in and out of time zones and making sure you do have time for your own work and you do have time for your life are very important. So it looks like I've got a lot of the bases covered between email overwhelm, meeting overwhelm, and looks like we've got some overcommitted teams as well. So a lot of what faces a team when overcommitment is a factor is not even knowing what they've committed to. What's the true list of projects on your plate? What are the true milestones that you're facing this quarter? No one can know for sure. Things are constantly in flux and changing. So thank you so much for being candid and contributing there. And when we speak to the leaders of organizations that we support, number one on the list is global uncertainty, whether it's the marketplace, the economy, whether we've got folks in different regions of the world, we don't know what they're facing culturally. The exposure and the risk have gotten larger to corporations. And what that means for us as individuals is that when we sit down to collaborate, we have to be prepared for more. Well, what you just told me in the poll was that when you sit down to work on a project or attend a meeting, you're not even there. You're overwhelmed with email. You're consumed with just the details that you left behind or you walked away from to be in the space of collaboration. So individual productivity and a backlog of work are piling up. When it comes to team synergy and project management, our output is on a slippery slope. And this is because a lot of us are overwhelmed. A lot of us have been given tools that we don't know how to use or how to integrate into a process or system that we can trust. And when I talk about tools, I'm talking about software. Maybe your organization has a master Excel template that they use to manage projects, or maybe you're a heavy Microsoft project user. On the forefront of team collaboration and team project management are team sites and project sites in SharePoint. Like I mentioned, SharePoint is rolled out in all shapes and sizes to different organizations, but the challenge is where do you go for what? And Angela will also be speaking to the benefits of having the team agree for common purpose to use the tool. And gosh, I can't stress on this enough. Work and life balance are really being negatively impacted by our individual challenges and our team challenges. In some cases, the question of balance really is a myth. I conducted a work and life balance webinar last week for a large corporation, and an individual stuck around at the end of the call and said, "Paige, I love what you presented. It all sounds fine and dandy. But what if I go on vacation with my family for a week to Hawaii, and I'm expected to participate on every single conference call?" Well, there's a couple of ways you can look at that. I told him, well, if your team members were to go to Hawaii or anywhere for that matter, would they be expected to be on the call? And he said probably not. So it's our own perceptions, too, about where we are needed and what we bring to the table. And a lot of you have probably realized by now, when you place that much authority or reliability on one individual, you are increasing your risk of output, productivity, and profitability. So we've got to get away from that trend of, having people dial in from Hawaii or wherever that is, because there are other ways to master that chaos and manage the risk. So as a result of the challenges, we are facing an enormous backlog of work. This is causing us as individuals and our teams to work at nights and weekends. That creates a huge morale problem, and it also creates a huge imbalance, and people become bitter. I personally was a road warrior for a software company for years. I literally lived in either a hotel, an airport. I was plugged into the Starbucks Wi-Fi. It was nonstop. I was constantly in front of clients. I was making them extremely happy. I was making a lot of money for the company and for my, bank account. But it was no life. It was just me working. And I happened to wake up one morning with a stress injury. I couldn't move my neck. And at the ripe old age of 31, an emergency room doctor told me to lock my computer in the closet for 2 weeks. So that's what individuals might be facing. Of course, mine is an extreme example. But why we're all here is to master the chaos that we're faced with and the demands. So team output often doesn't resemble original intentions or goals. So my team, when they set me out on the road, didn't plan for me to face that level of demand, but I was just getting too much information. And I had a client on a phone call recently who said, "We started this project and we don't know what's going on. We don't know where we're at. We don't know what the next step is, and then this just cost us $25,000. A lot of us are not motivated on a day-to-day basis, or our teams are not motivated just simply because of the overwhelm. And I can't stress more enough about the protocols and boundaries that are very unclear among teams. And this was a huge takeaway from the Transforming Team Productivity course that I attended with Angela's facilitation, was that we just have to come together and agree what is acceptable and what's not, find a mission statement and an intention statement for our team so that we're all respected, we feel supported, and that when we turn our projects in and sign off on those projects, we have the utmost confidence that what our companies are getting are quality work. Last but not least, I'll talk a little bit about the bottom line. I told you about my personal experience with my health being challenged. That is my personal bottom line. We all deserve to have a life. We all deserve to balance the things that we're passionate about and what we like putting ourselves to work and through the challenges that we face in our organizations. Some of us have advanced degrees. we have all these advanced degrees and we know a lot about our industries and the products and programs we support, but how is my life and my happiness going to resemble the outcome that I want? And then the professional bottom line are the corporations that we work for. A lot of the companies we work for conduct organizational health surveys. They are revealing that the stress and the pace of the day-to-day workflow are what really limiting their companies from producing the profits that they're out to achieve. I've had the privilege and the, I guess, dismay of working for a publicly held company where a single individual wrote an ineffective email to a government employee where we ended up on the front page of the Baltimore Sun, and our stock price plummeted about $60 just over the course of an overnight example of ineffective email and not knowing where boundaries are. So it's costing companies money in all directions. So I've probably made a very clear point about team challenges and the results that we're all facing. I'm going to introduce John Kane. He's going to share you a little bit about his story and the challenges he personally faced. And John, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Paige. So my Effective Edge story started about 8 years ago when I had taken on a position of greater responsibility, and try as I might, I could not meet the demands of that new position. So I spent all day in meetings, nights and weekends were spent trying to catch up on email, and I still wasn't able to get the project work done. So I kind of looking for a solution on how do I improve that. I've been called the Effective Edge and took their Getting the Edge training. So with this day-long training event, I went from missing my commitments, working nights and weekends, and not seeing my family to leaving at 5 o'clock. I was able to then spend time with my family as well as getting my commitments done. So today, even, it remains the main reason that I can handle the workload that I do. So I still get to spend time with my family. I've got challenging and job at Dell, and I'm a graduate student at UT. So I'm a big fan of that program and have continued to expand it and make sure that my teams have access to this tool. So probably 3 or 4 years ago now, through another increase in responsibility, I had 3 different teams working for me, 24 people, and the volume of work was absolutely overwhelming and growing. So in order to meet that growth, I needed to expand to Asia to be able to leverage our vendor partners. So as we're making that transition to a global team, my teams were very worried about their jobs. Morale was very low. So getting them to participate and engage was very challenging. I struggled tracking the work that was coming or going. So as a team, we couldn't prioritize or appropriately communicate when we were going to miss commitments. So our status reports ended up being ad hoc and non-existent. We basically had 24 individuals that were working in their independent silos, all of which were frustrated by the need for work updates and status meetings. So personally, I continued to pull together spreadsheets and drive the team to track where we were spending our time, and it became too much of my time trying to help people to fill out spreadsheets, and so it was overall very chaotic. And so having had the Getting the Edge training previously, I called Angela to see if she could come provide that training to the team, which is when she made me aware of their productivity class. So it's a 2-day class, which immediately had me concerned. That's a big commitment to take 3 entire teams offline for 2 days. But having the experience that I have with the Getting the Edge class itself, as well as knowing that we'd be solving the problems that we were facing right there in those 2 days, I knew it would be worth it. So at this point, I'd like to hand it off to Angela, who's going to take you through what that class was.
Thank you, John. So as John just mentioned, his initial call to us was about wanting to get the Getting the Edge class, which is somewhat our pilot program. But after hearing his concern, I did believe that it was a great opportunity for us to look at the Transforming Team Productivity material. So for those of you who've taken the Getting the Edge class, think about what that class did for you personally, how it helped you to organize your work and leave with an empty inbox, but that sense of accomplishment and clarity that you had at the end of the day. The goal of the team program is to give that same level of clarity to the entire team. So for the team productivity course, Getting the Edge is a prerequisite, so that way all of the individuals are coming to the team with their information clear first. Then what we do is we take the entire team's workload. We look at everything that's going on within the team. What are your current projects? What are your future goals and opportunities as far as projects are concerned? And we look to transform how the team is working. Now, within some organizations, there are personality profiles and assessments that you take. As a part of the Transforming Team Productivity class, we do what's called a DISC assessment. It's similar to Myers-Briggs and the Colors program. What that allows us to do is it allows us to identify what's going on with each individual. How do you think? How do you process? What are your natural tendencies? Because what we look to do is establish within the team a synergy for how the work is getting done. So we accomplish our work as individuals, but we elevate our work as teams. So what we look to do is to find out within any group and environment what's going on naturally, and then how can we leverage that with all of the workflow that we need to put out. So there are a series of different activities that we go through as a part of the 2-day course. But two of the items that we cover, which Paige has mentioned, is establishing a team mission statement and a team intention statement. The example that Paige had mentioned about the gentleman who went on vacation, and while he was on vacation, there was an expectation of him also being on conference calls. How many of us have had that experience? You plan a vacation, you and your family are looking forward to the vacation, and then it ends up being a working vacation. That really does damage our work-life harmony, because the same way when we come to work, we want to be focused on our work and make sure that we're paying attention to the T's and the I's and making sure that we don't send out emails in the middle of the night that cost the company, as Paige mentioned earlier, a large sum of money. So when we go in to work with a team, we look to identify what is our team's mission. Then we look to break that down into also what are our team's intentions as to how we achieve that intention and that mission statement. So when we're talking about emails, when we're talking about meetings, when we're talking about working over different time zones, how can we make sure that we're respecting the individual as well as the team? And so some of the outcomes from the 2-day training is that we put that information in place. But we also marry that information to the technology that the team already has available. So whether you use Microsoft Projects or SharePoint in managing your projects and your workflow, we go ahead and set up all of that information as a part of our 2-day experience. So for those of you who are using SharePoint, the wonderful tools within SharePoint that allow us to have clarity is we can actually set up meeting workspaces so that when we're working, whether it's across time zones or across the hall, we can actually go into SharePoint and have the agenda laid out, have all of our documents preloaded, have all of the items that are going to be discussed and all of the actions that are being sent out all published within that one location. So that way if an individual has to be on vacation, they can go ahead and load before they leave for vacation all of the information for the team to have access to in their absence. And also when that individual returns from vacation, they can go to that same SharePoint meeting site and review all of the information that took place while they were gone. That cuts down on emails being sent. It cuts down on ad hoc meetings for someone else to give them that same information. But what we look to do with the 2-day course is go ahead and establish what are going to be the team's goals, opportunities for future goals, and we map all of the information out while we're together. So that way we have effective meetings, and we also establish an effective communication strategy. Do we make calls in the middle of the night? Do we send emails in the middle of the night? If so, what are the parameters under which we do these things? But when we're talking about the Getting the Edge course, we're talking about advancing you as an individual. What we do with the team course is we take that same concept and we apply it to the entire team environment And then we add additional tools that the team may be using. So whether that tool is SharePoint, whether you're using an Excel spreadsheet, whether you're using additional gadgets, we go ahead and marry all of that information for the team's future success. So what I'd like to do is turn the conversation back over to John to share with us the results that he experienced from the 2-day event that we had. John?
Thanks, Angela. So it's difficult to directly quantify the results of the training class itself, just due to the globalization efforts as well as leveraging our vendor partners more. But what it did is it allowed the teams, immediately we saw an increase in team morale while going through a difficult transition to a global operation. So we had 3 teams here in Austin and had to move one of the work of one of those teams over to Asia. And overall, once the entire project was done, we were able to double the output of the team while maintaining our overall headcount flat and only increasing our total cost by about 20%. So it enabled us to finally cost-effectively scale with the growth of our business. Probably the most surprising result was how close it had pulled the team together. I never thought of it as being a team-building event until afterward, but almost as a side effect, it became the best team-building event I've had at Dell in over 11 years. So the team pulled together immediately through using the disk profiling and the team's understanding what their different disk behaviors were. The more dominant team members would stop to include and get input from the more reserved team members, where they were previously kind of frustrated with each other. Individuals immediately started working together and looking for each other's strengths. So, including myself, I had a better understanding of different team members' behaviors, and it gave us all really a common language to discuss our differences and then use those differences to our advantages. So, the team then followed the different processes that Angela taught us, and they really took ownership of making these improvements. The team would go through a mind sweep together and broke these different activities down to smaller groups of work, assigned different team leaders and participants for those groups. And as they understood and saw the importance of tracking and reporting the work, and even came up with a program name for it. The team really took ownership of the problem and pulled together to solve the business needs. So these results are obviously team dependent, but the effect was absolutely incredible with this team, and we were able to get more done and have more fun while doing it. And now I'll hand it back off to Paige.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Angela. So what was just presented was the case study from start to finish with John's group at Dell. What he faced personally a long time ago and experienced results with was getting the edge, mastering his individual productivity, and then thinking about what was really required to take his team to the next level, or at least bring them some relief. When he and I first talked about bringing this case study to the webinar environment and he talked about his results, I was just floored. My jaw went to the ground because for an organization or a team within an organization to acknowledge that their productive output increased 100% while remaining with a flat headcount, that is like a CEO's wildest dream. Like, how can we get our organization to do more with less or to do more with what we already have? And a lot about what's missing from the day-to-day support that we get from the organizations we work with is just that empowerment and the clarity that can come from bringing our team together and looking at things in a different way. Now, when Angela administers the DISC assessment, and I know a lot of you might have already participated in some type of personality questionnaire or assessment within your team or organization, it's not just something you read and you file away. It's something that's tangible in your hands, that you get to look across the table at the individual who might have a vastly different personality from yours, and you can assess in the moment and collectively as a team how you're going to communicate better and respond to one another. And that takeaway takes the veil off of the atmosphere for teams to say that we're all different, and that we all bring really great strengths together. So how can we make them more powerful and leverage them? So that's where the team mission statement and intention statement come in, is that without a mission, teams really kind of wander around like a swarm of ants. And when you're wandering around like a swarm of ants, there's no clear direction, and it's probably mass chaos or mass hysteria. The example that I gave as it pertains to that balance of not, relying on that one individual to be the carrier of information or the bearer of the processes while they go on vacation. Just think about the risks that your teams face and then how you'd like to overcome them. So what I'd like to do next is open it up for Q&A. The attendee list has been privatized. You probably figured that out by now. But you are welcome to type in notes to the presenters by way of the Q&A window to the left-hand side of the screen. And it has been enabled to allow for this will pop up so that everyone can see it. And I'm going to do my best to moderate those verbally. And what we don't get to by the end of the hour, if there's just a long, long list, I will time them appropriately so that we don't stay too late. All right, so you had hoped to understand how John was using SharePoint. Very good question. I will start sharing my screen in just a minute, and I'll give you some insights. I did save the best for last. All right, so I've got a couple more questions coming in. At this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. What will be presented today to help with my team productivity? Got it. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to share SharePoint. All right, so that's not SharePoint. Let me toggle that to, here we go. So when you log into SharePoint, and for those of you who are not SharePoint users, this might just be some insight into what could be possible for you. The most pivotal point in getting the team to work more effective was to create a meeting workspace. So when we show up for Getting the Edge class, a big complaint is my inbox is too full. I get email nastygrams from IT saying that my Outlook is too full. I can't even send emails anymore. So a big culprit at the end of the class, or where we discover for each individual, is that meeting invitations are being sent with big bulky PowerPoints or big spreadsheets or big PDF documents. You name it, you get the picture. So to take the reliability or the redundancies with the email updates related to meetings and taking the attachments out of the equation, you need to rely on a tool like meeting workspaces in SharePoint. So what I'm showing you here is a meetings calendar set up for the Effective Edge, and we're using SharePoint 2007. A lot of you might have already upgraded to SharePoint 2010. There are some, details that might be a little bit different. I know the look and the feel are a little bit different. I'm going to pull up a meeting. We have a standing meeting on the second Monday of every month. It's called an all-hands meeting at the Effective Edge. And when you set up meetings to recur in SharePoint, you have the option of enabling a workspace. Workspaces can also be customized. So the all-hands meeting workspace looks like this. It has a schedule on the left-hand side. If any person or individual is not able to attend, they can look at the records. Within this workspace, you have a record of attendance, you have a record of the agenda, any notes that were shared, the action summary tracker. So when you leave a meeting or when you're in the collaboration mode of a meeting, everyone agrees to certain actions. And this is what the action, I should call the person documenting the actions in the meeting is responsible for capturing these. And you can set up RSS feeds or email alerts. each individual is responsible for setting up their own alerts so that when an action item is assigned to a distribution list or an individual, they can use it to translate into a task in Outlook. So it's up to the meeting organizer to come in and resolve the tasks in the next meeting, and the individuals to resolve their own personal actions. So some of them are assigned to groups, some of them are assigned to individuals. So my point that I was trying to drive home with the bulky meeting invitations with the attachments is that documents can be preloaded, and documents can be historically referenced. So these should be treated as final documents, not working documents. This is not the collaboration space to, add to something or check it out. It's just for the sole management of the meeting space. Any quick links with the template that you set up for your workspace, the links will recur, so you don't have to add them over and over again. And then decisions. If any key decisions were made to change gears or switch gears or take on a new initiative, you'll add the decisions to the workspace here. So if you're going to miss a meeting, you can rely and trust on the information to be available. The document library can be a web part that is enabled from the home screen. So that's my best example of a regular standing meeting where you're tired of having to manage the decisions and email follow-ups and action items that are emailed out. I'll be honest with you. When I leave a meeting, I usually have to process my inbox. The last thing I have time to do is start translating all my notes into tasks in Outlook. So when the email arrives in my inbox from SharePoint, I can just defer it to my tasks and categorize it with the deadline that's been assigned. So that's an example of the meeting workspace, and I know that Tony had a question coming up about how John was using it. All right, are the documents in the documents for this meeting a link or a storage location? It's actually a storage location. You can set it up so that you do have a central document repository for your team documents or meeting documents, and there is the ability to link to them. It just depends on your permissions. And as a general rule in the team environment, like Angela does facilitate, you put up, you work off a couple of whiteboards and decide on where you're going to put final documents, whether it's on a network drive or in a document repository or library in SharePoint. And there's always going to be a space for working documents in SharePoint as well, where you can track revisions and who's checked it in or checked it out. All right, so those are all good questions. Keep them coming. We have a few more minutes before I want to wrap it up. I'll give everyone a couple of moments to participate. And if you're not a SharePoint user, the landscape of project management and a project mind sweep is captured in an Excel document, and we do provide the template, and everyone on the team signs off of it at the end of the day. How do you use the KPI functionality of SharePoint, or have we used it? As an organization, the Effective Edge has not, so my question I might defer would be to John. And what's the relationship with Excel? Got it. So I'm going to go ahead and ask John to answer the question whether or not he's using the KPI functionality. I will speak to the Excel point and have Angela speak up in just a minute.
Right now, we're not using the KPI functionality, so that's a feature that we still need to have the opportunity to explore. SharePoint's a very flexible tool.
I'll chime in about Excel. So the meeting workspace that I'm showing everyone here in SharePoint probably isn't, The meeting effectiveness and the protocols around meetings are different for an Excel type of transforming team productivity program. The tools are just different, but the protocols are set up. And the spreadsheet itself has, different tabs associated with project outcomes, the mind sweep of the project, the task item tracker, and the schedule of meetings. All right, so Angela, I'd like you to speak to the question that's come up about the various forms and layers of how we're integrating SharePoint into our instruction.
I want to make sure that I'm seeing the question correctly. Would be interested in the detailed class offerings you may have coming up on SharePoint. I just want to make sure that we're answering the correct question. So when I'm done, if that doesn't answer the question that you were looking for an answer to, please feel free to retype. There are different phases of the classes that we offer because not every organization is on SharePoint, but speaking specifically about SharePoint and how a team organization or a team environment can use it. So Paige showed you some information regarding a meeting workspace, so how we can map out all of that. You can also have project workspaces, document workspaces. You can have document libraries. So a lot of the information that we're sharing within a team environment, the SharePoint tool allows us to cut down on the email redundancy. And so when the team is looking for information, instead of me emailing Paige or IMing Paige or calling Paige, I can actually go directly to the SharePoint location, and I can see when was the document or the information last updated. If I need to create a discussion board, so if within our team environment we're trying to troubleshoot something, we can set up a team discussion board where we can share our information. We can also set up a wiki where once we've established best practices, we can house that information within SharePoint. So within our collective team environment, a lot of those interruptions that we have taking place, we can really push all of that communication to SharePoint to cut down on a lot of the interruptions that we have going back and forth. So as far as courses that we offer for SharePoint, on our website, on the LMS side of our website, we have an online course called SharePoint Basics, where you can actually go on and walk through, or actually have the course walk you through how to use all of the tools within SharePoint that help you to leverage your work. So, again, there's the online course that you could go in at your own pace and take the SharePoint Basics class that would help you to understand the different lists, the different document spaces, meeting workspaces, all of the ins and outs of how SharePoint can collect the information, manage the information, and give you immediate access to the information. So I just want to make sure that we did clarify the question that was being asked, or give the answer to the question that was being asked.
All right, that sounds good, Angela. Thank you. And again, all questions can be submitted, and we can work with you one-on-one. The environment in the webinar, we have about 100 people in attendance from various companies with various levels of need for getting their team to increase their productivity. So whether it's with SharePoint or Excel, can we share best practices for shared documents? There are some parameters around shared documents that I personally have stumbled upon in the last couple of weeks, where if you put up like an Excel spreadsheet or a PowerPoint template, you want to make sure that you write a note in there. Do not make any changes. This information is proprietary only. Do not share it externally and stuff like that. You do have the option of uploading a PDF file so that the data and stuff that's presented has integrity. We are working on creating more best practices for shared documents. Our team has been knee-deep in developing content for this, and we're starting out with producing on-demand content first because of the diversity of the live environment and delivery with teams. So Angelica posed the question, if we have multiple projects in progress at the same time, maybe 20 or more, if you're looking for a program or a piece of software that will allow you to keep track of all those tasks needed and have a successful outcome, the first piece of software that comes to mind is Microsoft's Project, where you can manage the actions and the timelines by Gantt chart, and you can integrate the task usage with who's assigned what. So that's one layer. But when we work with teams, it is also coming back to just that origination of how can we reduce overwhelm, how can we manage the information more effectively by whether it is a shared document repository or a team meeting structure that makes sense and there's not any unnecessary meetings showing up. So the culture around the delivery of transforming team productivity is about how everyone behaves as it relates to project management, and it's not just something that is on their job description. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
May I just one more comment to what you were sharing about having 20 projects at one time? So with the Transforming Team class, what we do is we actually take all 20 of those projects and we look at what's the reality. So we take the true workload and we work from a clarity standpoint into a forecasting standpoint. So whatever the situation is, within the two-day class, we would identify the best tool, or even prior to in pre-class conversations, we would be looking to identify the tool best capable of helping you to manage that. And then within the two-day class, we actually break down each of the 20 projects, all of the responsibilities of the 20 projects, and then actually delegate out all of those obligations so that we can then track them. So whether you're using SharePoint or Microsoft projects, as a part of the 2 days, we actually put all of that work into whichever tool we're going to be using, and then we map out what's the timeline for us to move these projects to completion, and also recognizing that things change. There's an ebb and flow to all of our work. But looking within our team environment, what are our natural tendencies based on individual personality traits, and then matching those to the reality of our work, and then forecasting how do we now leverage the amount of work we have now towards what we see coming up, towards what the true team nature is. So looking again at our synergy as a team to make sure that we're accomplishing all of our goals. Thank you, Paige.
Very nice, Angela, and that's why she's the expert. Again, when we walked out of the Transforming Team Productivity with Angela, it was just, it was made more clear to me that there's a layer at which teams have to operate and think and forecast and leverage tools in front of them to have people shut down at night and feel more confident that they're getting as much as they possibly can in a day's time done, and then come back for more re-energized. So at this point in time, I'm going to leave up my contact information and thank everyone for being here. For additional questions as it pertains to our best practices and the course material that we have in the pipeline, we have a huge product development schedule ahead of us with various layers of communication about teams, collaboration. We've got Jive, which is another collaboration tool, and instant messenger effectiveness. And for those of you who are leveraging social media, blogs, and wikis, we have content coming out pertaining to that as well. So my hope is that today you have a fresher understanding of what our team productivity offerings are, and that if you are facing similar challenges, the solution could come in many different packages. I would have loved to have had an hour chock full of SharePoint tips and tricks, but what I have available in SharePoint could be vastly different from what you have. So it does take a lot of upfront work and customization for us to come up with the perfect solution for each one of you. We also have a blog called Living the Edge, where in every month we publish articles as it pertains to team productivity and which tools you're integrating. SharePoint is a very hot topic that we are covering in our blog, and you can take that content to heart and to your teams to see if it's worthwhile pursuing additional instruction. So thank you all for being here and taking an hour out of your week, and I hope you're making some time today for yourself to recharge as well. I look forward to hearing from all of you, and have a wonderful afternoon.